Okay, so we should be live. Welcome to the Midnight Society Book Club. I'm so excited to be here today. I am joined by two amazing co-hosts. We have Mikala as well as Hailey, who both have YouTube channels here, booktube channels, I should say. And for this month, we are reading Good Bad Girl by Alice Feeney. So we submit for the approval of the Midnight Society, Good Bad Girl by Alice Feeney, because that is what it is called. So I have two awesome co-hosts with me today. Thank you all for joining me. Let's start out by introducing you to anyone who maybe hasn't seen your channels before. I know, Mikala, you're relatively new to YouTube, so I'm really happy to have you on here. I was so excited to find your channel. And you read very similarly, I think, to Hailey and myself. So I'm excited for people to get a chance to see your channel and see what you have to offer as well. And so why don't we start out with you telling us a little bit about your channel, what kind of videos you like to make, what was your last 5-star read? Just so we kind of have an idea, like what sparks joy in you.
Yes.
If you want to start, Mikala, and then we'll go over to Hailey.
Sounds good.
Well, and while they're doing that, I'm so sorry. While they're doing that, y'all, if you read the book, why don't you give us like a red heart if you read the book, and then a knife if you did not read it. Sorry for interrupting you. Go ahead, Mikala.
That's okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Mikala, and I am newer on BookTube. I just started my channel actually back in February, so it hasn't quite been a year yet. But I've been having so much fun on BookTube, and I know everybody says this, but I wish I had started my channel sooner because BookTube is so nice and supportive. I read a majority of horror, thriller, and mystery books, and Elizabeth and Hailey are two of my favorite BookTube channels. So thank you so much, Elizabeth, for asking me to be a part of this discussion. I am so happy to be here.
And then what was the last 5-star book that you read?
Yes. So the last 5-star book I read was The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. So I finished that book and actually immediately started to reread it. And I read again halfway through it in a single sitting. So if you guys are looking for like a cozy, spooky book, that The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman is an amazing recommendation.
Okay, cool. I don't know that I've heard of that one. The Graveyard Book. What is that about?
So it's kind of Coraline-esque with, Neil Gaiman's style. And Coraline is like one of my favorite films ever. So it is a middle grade, and it's basically about a young boy who grows up in a graveyard with like his family is all ghosts, but he's not actually dead. He's alive. So it's very like cute, spooky, which I'm really in the mood for right now. And it just totally it was exactly what I needed.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here, Mikala. Hailey, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Hailey. My channel is just Hailey Hughes. I've been around BookTube for a minute, getting in the drama and all of those things, but mainly I just like to read thrillers and horror, more horror recently than thrillers, which has been an interesting little journey for me, but I always love a good little new release thriller. Alice Feeney is actually one of my favorites. She's my most reliable author, other than like Karen Slaughter, Jennifer Hillier, my all-time faves. So I was excited to read this one, and I'm not going to spoil my thoughts yet, but I have many. My last 5-star book, I think, was Disseverment by Z.C. Kroll. He's a new author, an indie author. That's the only work that he has out, but it was phenomenal. It's a short little horror novella. I read it in a couple hours, and it's very, very triggering, very, very dark, like family trauma heavy, but also body horror heavy. It's just all the things, but I was obsessed with it.
You said that was called Disseverment?
Yes.
Okay, I've not heard of this. That sounds amazing. Is that like extreme horror, or is it
horror, I would not
thriller?
Extreme. It's just intense horror. The body horror honestly isn't even that bad. The most triggering parts was like family generational trauma representation, which I thought it was amazing representation. But if you are not prepared to go into that, definitely don't read that book.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Well, that sounds really good. I gotta say, Hailey, when I first started doing YouTube, I really connected with you on like the Karen Slaughter front, because Karen Slaughter to me is like God tier. Like
Yes.
Pretty Girls especially, I think is her best book. I'm trying to catch up on the Will Trent series right now. I haven't read all of her books. I've read all of the Grant County, and I think I've read all of the standalones. But yeah, that's how I connected with you at first with your channel, and as well as the fact that you're a therapist, which I absolutely love. I studied psychology as well. And I'm obsessed with breaking down human behavior. So I love that about you. So thank you so much for being here. Yeah. So let's talk about the book. What is this book about? Mikala, do you want to give us just a brief synopsis of what's in this book?
Yes. So in Good Bad Girl, the book takes off 20 years ago. We pick up with a baby that is stolen from a stroller, and we switch POVs and we find out that a woman has been murdered in a care home. So we find that these two crimes are somehow linked, and a good bad girl at the center of the story may be the key to discovering the truth.
Nice. Very apt. Very apt description. So I have read every single Alice Feeney book now, and I love her. She is one of my favorite authors. This one, it's so funny because the kind of evolution of her books.
I'm not sure I understand.
Oh, my watch does not understand. I'm sorry. The evolution of her storytelling and her writing has been so interesting for me, because last year with Daisy Darker, I felt like she really leaned into the writing and the more kind of purple writing, not purple, but like more flowery writing. And this one, I feel like also did that. Like there were so many moments in here where I was like, highlight that line, highlight that, like so sage. And yeah, I will say, I guess I'm going to tell you, I enjoyed this. But it's not my favorite of hers. And I can definitely understand why not everybody has loved this, considering the expectations that are set up for her and her books that come out.
Right.
But I think what's in here is pretty great. What do you guys think? Have you read from Alice Feeney before? And which of hers have you read? Do you like her? What's the deal with that? I know Hailey said that she's one of your favorites. Why don't you start?
I love her. I've read everything in her backlist, and I've loved every single one, even the ones that I'm like, 3.5. I still had such a good time reading it that I never regret picking her up. My very favorite has been Sometimes I Lie. I think that's like the iconic one. My least favorite is Daisy Darker, including Good Bad Girl. I know. That's like a crime.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I did not know this about you. I did not know that you didn't like Daisy Darker. That's so funny. Okay. We can get into that. We can get into that for sure. All right, cool. Mikala, have you read Alice Feeney before?
I have. So the first book I read by her was Rock, Paper, Scissors. And I am the unpopular opinion here, so do not hate me, you guys. But she is not a hugely favorite author for me. Rock, Paper, Scissors was a 2-star. And here's the thing. So I just recently read I Know Who You Are last month. And the thing with Alice Feeney is there are things about her I really do like. Like, I think she's really good at crafting a mystery, but it's the ending and her twist for me that sometimes let me down. So that was like my thoughts, especially on I Know Who You Are. Like that twist, I wasn't prepared for that.
I'm trying to remember the twist. That I just read that this year too, and I can't even remember the twist. I will say that was my least favorite of all of her books.
No.
Oh my gosh, I love that we all have different opinions about her books. That's so funny. My favorite is, Sometimes I Lie is one that I want to reread. I think that was actually the first book of hers that I read. and I want to reread that one and see if I still love it, because I definitely loved it when I read it at first. And I loved Rock, Paper, Scissors, and I loved Daisy Darker, even though the twist in that one is something that I don't traditionally enjoy. But I didn't see it coming because it's not the kind of twist that she usually does. So this one, I was on guard from the first moment. I was like, okay, Alice, I know you. What do you have in store for me? I'm listening to every single clue. I know how she likes to manipulate me as the reader, and I'm like looking for it, right? Yeah. And one thing that I was that I picked up on with what she does is that she really likes to start a scene like right in the middle of it, like right in the drama. Most, like if you think of like a film, right? Most scenes start with the, what is it called? There's a word for it, but it's like the shot that is kind of like the shot of the place and time. It's like a broad picture of this is where you're at. And this is, you know, so it gives you a sense of place and time inside the scene. Alice Feeney doesn't do that. She goes right into it. And so she uses that to manipulate you into assuming, into making assumptions. And she does that so well. I love that about her. Staying on non-spoilers for now. Oh, let's see what... Love Alice Feeney. Let's go to the comments real quick. Sometimes I Lie, give it 5 stars. Nice. Hard time getting into this one. Okay. Lizard Spock. I don't know what that means. Is that a person in here? What does that mean? Love her as an author. I've read 4 by her now. I think this is one of her strongest. Oh, I think this is not her strongest, but I still enjoyed it. I think Daisy Darker was my favorite. Sometimes I Lie was my favorite, but I love Daisy Darker. She always keeps me guessing. This is my first Alice Feeney. I would like to read more from her because I picked up on things easily in this book. Yeah, I think she does a really good job of connecting you to the characters, and like she's just a good storyteller. I think she's just a good storyteller in general. Rock, paper, scissors, both are okay to good. Okay. That's fair. That's fair. Rock, I don't understand what this means. What is Lizard Spock? Is that a book that I don't know about? I'm so confused. Okay, so why don't we talk about our ratings? Because I'm like really curious now. Or actually, first, let's get into, would you consider this a thriller? Because Alice Feeney is known to have, she writes thrillers, but sometimes we market books as thrillers when maybe they're not. What do you guys think? Do you think this one is a thriller?
I would call it a quiet thriller.
Yes.
It's definitely the quietest of her thrillers, for sure. It had, you know, thrilling little moments, but the entire way through, it definitely felt more like general fiction, like family drama vibes. But I like that in my thrillers, so I wasn't really annoyed by that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mikala.
I wanted to look up actually, because like you said, we do sometimes market them incorrectly, like market thrillers as mysteries, and that leads us to having false expectations and going into a book and, you know, rating it badly. And so I wanted to look up actually what is the difference between a thriller and a mystery. And what I found was a thriller devotes most of its focus to suspense, dread, and the fear of a future crime instead of one that's already happened, while the plot of a mystery centers around the main character piecing together clues of a crime. So based on that, I feel like this was more of a mystery because we're trying to figure out who killed the person in the care home and who stole the baby, what happened to the baby. So if that's what you want to call the difference, then I feel like this is more of a mystery. But I totally agree with Hailey. Like, it is like a quiet thriller.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I would consider this one more of a mystery than some of her other books. She is really well known for her twists, and this one didn't have all those twists. And so I think that's why some people were disappointed going into this one, because it doesn't have twist after twist after twist like you might expect from like rock, paper, scissors or something like that. I also think the difference between a mystery and a thriller would be that a thriller tends to be more fast-paced, and mysteries tend to be a little bit more meandering, a little bit kind of vibey and atmospheric. And I would say this one, more than any of her books, gave me like Ruth Ware vibes. Mm-hmm. It gave me Ruth Ware, which also is another author that is said to write thrillers, but I think tends to be more mysteries as well. Yeah. So I think if you have not read this book and you have the expectation going into it that this is going to be super twisty and super fast-paced, then you may be disappointed. But if not, if you're looking for just a really well-written story about family and that has this discussion about what is right and what is wrong in certain instances, then I think that you could get a lot out of this, and you would be compelled throughout. But that's just my personal opinion. And now this one also tends to go from POV to POV, which she does quite often. How do y'all feel about that type of writing where it's just like a whole bunch of POVs? And it's like, I feel like a lot of times that's done for the pacing, because it does tend to keep the pace a little bit quicker when you keep switching POVs. And it also is a really good way to kind of trick the reader into being misdirected. How do you all feel about that?
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
I feel like it has to be done well, though, because some books I do have the opinion of, why did we need all these POVs? Like, you could have focused on that one really interesting one you had, and you gave me like all these other side characters I didn't need. But I didn't feel that way about this book at all. Like, I feel like those short, punchy chapters really kept my interest, and like those shifting POVs keep you guessing and re-evaluating, like who do you think is a suspect? And I really liked that.
Mm-hmm.
Totally agree. Copy paste.
Yeah. Love Daisy Darker. Didn't care for this one all that much. I would categorize this one as domestic suspense. I think that could work for sure. What is there someone watching this named Lizard Spock and they're having a conversation? Why am I so out of the loop on this?
Oh,
what is Lizard Spock?
It's a big
so
thing.
Confused.
I don't know.
I don't watch that.
Oh, is that what she just said? Oh, it's a big. Oh my God, I didn't even finish reading it. Thank you. Okay. I feel like I'm disappointed in myself for not knowing that, because I love Big Bang Theory. 4 stars. Okay. This is a mystery, multiple mysteries actually. It's also familial drama. Yeah. Link to rock, paper, scissors, lizards. y'all, I can't. I actually like that OTT twists. What is OTT? Do y'all know what that means?
OTT?
Because this one literally has clues rather than throwing things on the wall with no prior basis, more showing than telling. Yeah, I do like, there are certain kind of mysteries or thrillers that certain ones will lead you along the way. So you're meant to find out, like, as the characters find out. And I really like that too, because it makes me feel like I'm smart. But I also like having one pulled over on me too, where I'm just like complete, like that's end goal, to like jaw on the ground with thrillers anyway. If I gasp out loud, then that's always a good sign.
There was one twist in this one that had me gasping. Like, I thought I was piecing things together, but one twist in particular, I don't think we could have guessed it. I don't know about you guys, like we can get into it, but there's one twist that was crazy.
Not yet. Let's wait till spoilers. Okay. But I definitely want to know which one that was. Let's see. I don't mind multiple POVs, but sometimes there are too many characters. Yeah, it's kind of exactly what you were saying, Mikala. Took me some time to get used to how many people were in this one. And I think we're following mainly 4 POVs in this one. So we have Patience, which is the nurse. We have Edith, which is the old woman in the care home, older woman, I should say. And then we have Cleo, which is Edith's daughter. And then what was her name? Frankie, who is looking for her daughter. Yeah. Actually, I think this multiple POVs have more basis because I had connected them all prior to reveals, which is what you want in a mystery question. Enjoyed this book. The reveals were easy to figure out. Mm-hmm. I would like to try another one of the books, see how she does the twists. Yeah, I would say try rock, paper, scissors, or His and Hers. Is that what it's called? His and Hers?
Yes, I loved that one.
I loved that one too, and I feel like that one's really underrated, and it was super twisty. And in that one, you get the POV of the killer as well, but you don't know who it is. And the audiobook does it really well because they distort the voice, so you don't know, is it a male, is it a female? Like, it's options completely open.
Ooh, that's cool. Yeah.
Over the top. Interesting. I would not categorize this one. Oh, over the top. Thank you. Okay, so let's go back. What did the what did she say? I actually like that over the top twists. Okay, I didn't really feel like, because I'm so confused. Okay, so you like this as opposed to over the top twists? Because this one was I think that's what she's saying.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Hailey, background rocks.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, now let's talk about our ratings. I'll start. I gave this one 4 stars. I think that it is not her best, but I love all of the little intricate things that she did in here. I really liked the sage wisdom that is Alice Feeney. There's so many little one-liners in here that I had to highlight, or that I had to remember, because I just felt like it was so strong and so impactful and meaningful. And I was hooked the whole time. I was never uninterested. I felt like the pacing was good, and I felt like the writing just kept my interest throughout. And it's one of those where I was just in my head, okay, I know you, Alice Feeney. I'm gonna figure this out. And to some extent I did, but I did keep going back and forth in my head. And sometimes that's the fun part, is just that as you're reading it, you're going back and forth, you're questioning your own beliefs on what you think is happening and what is not. And it's that's what keeps me entertained and what keeps me listening or wanting to listen. And I finished it pretty quickly. So what did y'all give it? I'm scared. Hailey, what did you give it? I feel like you rated it low.
Well, I was caught between a 3 and a 4. And I didn't love the reveals, so I was leaning towards 3, but then I didn't feel right giving it a 3 because, like you said, the sage wisdom of it all, I was like, I want to give it a 4. So I just landed on a 3.5 right at the middle. And I hate doing 5 ratings, but I had to. I couldn't decide.
Okay. What about you, Mikala?
For me, I am going with a 4. And I think this one, I try to think about what made this one work for me versus other Alice Feeney's. Because like I said, the other 2 I rated was a 2 and a 1 star. So I was thinking, what made this one work for me? And there's a couple things. I love the character Edith, the older woman living in the care home. She was so cute and funny. I also love that we had that mystery element told in a retirement home. I don't know if you guys have read Mother Thing by Ansley Hogarth, but that was one of my favorite parts of that book, was when we got to see kind of that care home aspect. And I want to see more of that in mystery thrillers. Somebody give us that. And I loved that this was surrounding more female relationships and less the domestic sort of marriage relationships. Typically, the other 2 I read was focusing on marriages, and I liked seeing more of the mother-daughter female bonds. That spoke to me.
I do feel like she has kind of switched it up, because her last 2 books, Daisy Darker and this one have kind of revolved more around like family and the drama within that, as opposed to like a domestic thriller or domestic suspense. So I do feel like she's kind of changed her like outlook a little bit, which is fun. But yeah, that's really interesting, Mikala, that you liked this one more than the other ones. Have you read We Spread by Ian Reid?
I have not. I've heard good things about it, but the only Ian Reid book I've read is the one that got made into the Netflix adaptation. I can't remember what it's called.
I'm
Why am I
thinking things.
Yes, that one. Yep.
Mm-hmm. That you might like that one. That's set in like a care home too.
Oh,
And
okay.
I love that it was following like an older woman, and it's very much like aging horror, like kind of facing getting old and what that does to your body, and it kind of plays on that. I loved that one.
Any book I've read following an older female protagonist, like the two I've read lately, Mary, by Nat Cassidy, and what is it? Sorry, I'm totally blanking. The other one.
One?
Yes. Oh my gosh, thank you. Death in Her Hand. Goodness gracious.
Yes, Death in Her Hand. Yep.
Yes, I loved following the older female protagonist. It's such an interesting POV we don't see very often. So I will definitely check out that Ian Reid book.
Yeah, I agree too. I love seeing an older protagonist being represented in like thriller and horror books, because I feel like that's so like never used to be a thing. And as I'm getting older, like I'm like, I want somebody that's going to represent me. I want to be able to relate to these people. Right. And when I pick up a book and they're like, I'm 22, I'm like, okay, like it's fine, but like I still like I want stuff out there that I can relate to too. So that's awesome. And I actually really loved Edith as a character as well. I thought Edith was probably my favorite character.
Mine too.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get into spoilers. I want to talk about the juicy stuff, the good. Let's see what everyone else is rating it. Wow, we've got a lot of different opinions about this one. Okay, 3.5. I honestly I was expecting our ratings to be farther apart, so that's kind of cool. Yeah. I love having either way, I love having something to discuss. If everyone's is the same or different or whatever. First Alice Feeney book where I love all the characters, maybe because they were all women. Yeah. Monica gave it 5 stars. That's awesome. Pacing a bit off. Liked the drama kicked in before we could really establish a connection with any of the characters. Smart. Yeah. Got a 4-star. Haven't read the new book yet on my TBR. Daisy Darker is one of my faves of all times. Daisy Darker was so divisive because I feel like that book was so different from like all of her other books. But I feel I see a little bit of it in here.
She kept the atmosphere.
Where the story went along. Nice. I think that's more because the past Feeney actually uses name changes to trick us. Okay, we know from the beginning whose name was changed. That's true. That's true. Okay, so we're going to talk about spoilers. If anybody has not read this book yet, you may exit now. You may leave. Come back after you've read it, and you can get all the juicy details that we're about to talk about. But we are going to go ahead and get into spoilers. And I know also tomorrow, just in case anyone who's watching doesn't know, I know Gabby's book club, the book troop, is also reading this book, and her live show is tomorrow. She's got Marcy and Ashley. And I'm predicting... I want to make a prediction about their thoughts. I think Gabby's going to give this 4 stars too, because I think she's going to connect with the writing like I did. I think Ashley's going to give this 2 stars, and I think Marcy's going to give it 3 stars. That's just my guess. We'll see if I'm right or not. We shall see. Okay, so what went down? So who killed May and Joy. Let's just like go over the basics here and figure out what we found out as we read this. Do one of y'all want to take this?
I'm so bad with character names. You're going to get vague descriptions from me.
Okay, May was the one who was sharing a room with Edith at the beginning who died. Her daughter was DC Chapman. No, her granddaughter was DC Chapman.
Okay.
Joy was the care home worker that was killed and left in the elevator. So let me think here. So now I'm trying to remember. I didn't write down my answers to this. Joy, the care home taker, was killed by Patience, right? She was killed by Patience.
Mm-hmm.
And then Edith kind of tried to take the blame for it.
Yes.
Because she didn't want her to get in trouble for it. DC Chapman let everybody get away with everything.
Mm-hmm.
And May was killed by, who was May killed by?
Joy, right? Was it Joy? She was killing people she was killing the people.
It was Joy.
Yeah.
I think it was Joy. Yeah, that's right. And then, so as far as like the family tree, we find out that Frankie and Patience, aka Nellie. Patience is the baby that was stolen. She is Frankie's little sister. Their mom is Cleo. Cleo's mom is Edith. So they are sisters, even though they're years apart. I don't know why I was thinking that Cleo and Frankie were like the same age as I was reading this. I pictured them as being the same age, but I did the math and I was like, no. Okay, let me show you my math here, because I was like, I gotta figure this out. Where is it? Wednesday. Sorry, let me find it. Mm-hmm. Oh no, where did it go? Okay, well I'm gonna have to find that. So basically, let me see if I can remember it. Joy, no, not Joy. Cleo was 16 when she had Frankie.
Yeah.
So, and then by the time she had Patience, she was married and in a relationship. So we can assume it was years later, but I don't know why, because Frankie was saying that she had Patience when she was 18, which is why they're so close in age. But that wasn't true. That was just a cover. When in actuality, Frankie might have been 18 when she was born, when Patience was born. But nonetheless, Frankie's in her 30s, Cleo's in her 50s, Patience is 18. So that makes sense. That could be possible.
Yeah.
And so they're all related to Edith. And then there's also the brother. What was his name?
Someone said Jude, yeah.
Yeah.
Jude. Yeah. And Jude kind of turns out to be the villain, of the story, because he's actually the only one, I feel like, that ends up having to pay consequences for what he did. And he may have
I am very much in support of the only male character being the one to have to pay for his sins. More of that.
So the themes of this were okay, sometimes doing the bad thing is the right thing to do. Sometimes doing what's wrong is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And so do you all agree with that? Do you believe that sometimes you have to do the wrong thing for the overall good?
Totally. I do this every day. I feel like, laws in Texas, this is a great example, don't always line up with what I believe as a mental health professional.
Yeah.
So I do things wrong. And if the state of Texas can never prove it, then I get to keep my license and keep practicing and keep providing gender affirming services.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
When I look at that question, my immediate answer is yes. Like that is what I lean towards. But like thinking about it a little further, I think it's definitely like a tricky question to answer because of course there's exceptions. Like thinking about it further, I think throughout history people have tried to justify doing wrong violent actions by saying or thinking it's the right thing to do, you know, and that's how they justify that. So I think it definitely depends. Like it's such a nuanced question that I would love to see explored more because it's so interesting. But yes, I think I immediately lean towards yes. There are exceptions, but it's hard to give a yes or no answer.
Yeah, I completely agree. If you think about like any dystopian story you've ever read or watched, most of the times those are based on the fact that whoever's in power is trying to do the right thing for the group, right?
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of times when you have like any kind of villain in any story, a lot of times they're like, this is what's right for everybody. But when you do what's right for everybody, you're also taking away agency from people.
Yeah.
And so when you take away agency from people, that's when it gets murky. That's when it gets really murky. Because not something that's good for someone is not necessarily good for another person.
Right.
And so it's really hard to generalize what is good,
Right.
what is bad. And that's when it gets really tricky with politics and all of that too. But yeah, I definitely agree that sometimes you have to do the wrong thing in order to rectify those situations where someone is being oppressed or somebody is being, stomped on because of somebody else's view of what the right thing is.
Right.
And I think that's really what a big part of what guides civilization in general, is everybody thinks they know what the right thing is for everybody else, and nobody can agree on it. Let's see what we're having in the comments here. I don't know where I left off. Oh, you think Ashley might give it 4 stars? We'll see. We'll see. She was killed by Cleo and Patience. Oh.
Yeah.
I remember that now.
Yeah. I think Patience actually is the one because she hits her over the head with that magnifying glass, but Cleo helps. So it's like they're kind of both culprits.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then Cleo tells her not to tell anybody what happened. So this whole time we don't know that Cleo and Patience already had this interaction throughout. And I kind of liked that too, where they that one scene at the very beginning, they kind of skip over it. And then at the very end, we go back and then we get the inside scoop, what actually happened in that scene.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool. May was killed by Joy. Okay. Mm-hmm. Joy killed May. Yeah. Joy killed Mary. Wait, May. I guess that means May. I'm like, wait a minute. Who's that character? Patience killed Joy, but out of self-defense, which is true. Because Joy is going to kill Edith and Cleo helped, but it was chaotic.
Totally. Yeah. It was.
But Cleo had an abortion, which is why I never would have guessed that Frankie and Nellie were sisters. Loved the twist. Yeah. So speaking of that, was that the twist that you were talking about, Mikala?
Yes,
they were sisters.
Yes, that was like a jaw drop moment. I did not predict that at all. That was crazy.
I don't think I predicted that one, but I think I was definitely open to the fact that the familial intricacies were going to be a little bit more it's just different than I anticipated. So I was open to that going into it.
Do you
And
guys
so I don't
know?
think I was.
I was gonna say, do you guys know why Frankie kidnaps patients as a baby? That was the one thing that I don't think I understood. Like, why does she take her?
So from my understanding, she didn't come to take her, but I think she came to meet Cleo. She came over. Edith answered the door and kind of like shoved her off and was like, it's not the right time. She doesn't need to meet you right now. And then I think Edith was trying to look out for Cleo because Cleo was depressed. She had postpartum. And she was like, I don't think she can handle it. So Edith arranged for it. I think it was Edith's idea for Frankie to take Cleo, in my recollection at least. And offered her $10 to do it or whatever. Like, I think the details of that can be hard to parse, but yeah, she was basically like, I think she brought it up kind of jokingly, and then Frankie took it upon herself to be like, okay, I'm going to save my little sister. If you're not going to show me, you're not going to let me have a relationship with my mom, I'm going to take care of this baby. Let's see here. Edith's children are Chloe and Jude. Yeah. Or Cleo and Jude. Yeah. Cleo was 16 when she gave up. Frankie was in her 30s when she gave birth to Patience Nellie. Gotcha. Jude was giving spoiled trust fund kid. Yep. And wanted mom dead so we can get the money. Yep. 100%. Mm-hmm. The right thing is subjective. Yeah.
Yeah.
So many gray area. I love the gray. Like that. That's what I love about life. That's what I love about books. Like that gray. I feel like everything's gray. And it's so funny because when you're young, everything feels black and white. Yeah. And then as you get more life experience, you start to see what actually motivates people to do certain things. And you bring in things like love and hatred and money, and everything just gets gray as fuck. And like, what, how do you see anything in black and white? Everything is gray.
Right.
Yeah, nobody has the same thought process. Wrong illegally or wrong in a bad way. That's another discussion. Yeah, because legality and morality can be very different things.
Right. Good point.
I think Frankie was a lot better mother to Patience than Cleo would have been. I mean, it's hard to say because, you don't know. I mean, I've never dealt with postpartum. Like, I don't know the detailed specifics of that, but like, I feel like she would have, like, she's not a bad person. So I feel like she would have been a good mom. She was just going through it at that time. Yeah. But I definitely feel like Frankie and Patience had a good childhood regardless.
Yeah. I think they would have looked like very different situations. I, like, now knowing the twist, could almost look back and say that makes sense. Just the way that they would relate. It was like almost more of a sister relationship than a mother-daughter relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of awful laws being passed that are so harmful to women in the LGBTQ community. So I wouldn't think twice before breaking a law to help save someone's life.
Yeah.
I really get that. Edith saw Cleo's postpartum depression, so she decides for her. Okay. Yeah, when she was born, Frankie stole Patience because she thought Cleo was a bad mother and didn't like crying children. Yeah, I guess Frankie knew the whole time she was Nellie's sister. Yeah. No, it wasn't Edith's idea. She offered her money to leave and then followed them to the shop. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I thought those two things were connected.
Yeah.
When Jude reminded Cleo about her first daughter, that gave away that it was most likely Frankie. When Edith was revealed as the one who lost Eleanor and Nellie, that solidifies it for me. Yeah, that was another kind of reveal in there, was that we thought, I thought it was Edith's daughter from the beginning that was lost, but she was watching Patience and taking her to the grocery store to try to give Cleo a break.
Yeah.
And so she had, like, Alice Feeney does such a good job of making us understand the character's motivations for doing these things. And like, especially at the end when we get that letter from Edith that's like kind of explaining like everything and why she did everything, it makes sense to me, like as a human, that you would want to protect your child. And and even though it doesn't seem like necessarily the right thing objectively, you can understand why she would want to do that to help her child.
Mm.
And then she just deals with that for the rest of their relationship up until this point, where she's just like, I know I did this terrible thing and I can't really face you. And so they're both like hurting at the same time, but not showing that.
Yeah.
So I like that. Perception that Cleo was a bad. Edith gave Frankie the perception that Cleo was a bad mom. Edith was so stressed too. Yeah. Feel bad that Cleo was robbed of raising 2 daughters. Yeah. At 16, she gave up her baby for adoption to have a better life, but then she doesn't really get any chance with Patience. We didn't really get a whole lot about her husband too, or like why he left. I guess like he, obviously that would be hard for a couple to lose their child. But we didn't really get a good idea of like where he is now, if she still has a relationship with him at all, or like he was just kind of like very much side character that we didn't get any kind of depth into.
Yeah.
Feel awful for Cleo. Edith was the villain, in my opinion. Like how cruel could you be? I mean, yeah, but again, the villain is all about your perception.
Yeah.
Felt bad for Cleo as well. Okay, so let's go. Okay, so I have a couple of quotes that I wrote down. So I kind of want to like see if we can figure out what Feeney is trying to say with this stuff. So we started out, let's see. So Cleo says, not everyone we meet in the present is the same person they were in the past. Do you agree with that? Are people capable of meaningful change? Or do you think a person is who they are and no matter what they do, they can't change that?
I mean, I see this every single day in my job. I love that Cleo was the character that got to say this because obviously she was a counselor, so she sees that every day. And I see it all the time. Like, people shift, people change in meaningful ways. People can totally transform their lives. I'm bought into this quote.
What do you think, Mikala?
I totally agree. I really don't like when people say that sentiment that people don't change or like you can't change or something. Like, I believe people are capable of change. I just think they have to want to change. And I think when people think that people don't change, it's because they've met people who do not want to change. But you can change. You just have to make an effort and actually want it,
Mm-hmm. I think it truly does take a lot for a person to humble themselves enough to say, hey, maybe what I'm doing is not right. Look into that and then take those steps and learn and do the research and then follow through. Like, there's a lot of steps in there, but I think it's definitely possible for somebody to make changes in their lives. And we've seen it before. Like, we've seen it in time and time again, but I think it's more likely, especially as we grow older, that we get comfortable. And then we try to escape discomfort, and part of growing and changing is accepting that discomfort and kind of facing it head on. So I don't think that most people are inclined to do that, but I do think it's absolutely possible.
Yeah. That's a really good point, especially about growing older and you get so stuck in your ways. Like, even me, I'm like finding as I'm getting older, like I find a way, I know how to do something and even though there's probably a better way to do that thing, I don't want to take the time to learn it because I'm like, I already know a way, you know? And that reminds me of how people think like, you know, like our parents or grandparents, they don't want to figure out how to use their smartphones, you know? So sometimes I feel like that, like, I know how to do this. I'm not going to find the faster, better way. So that's a really good point about how sometimes when you get older, you get stuck in your ways and you don't want to change.
And I think that's like reinforced also, like if we do say, okay, I'm going to try this, and then you don't get that immediate reinforcement of like, oh, okay, now I'm good at it. Like you have to actually put work into it to get good at it for it to be easier and more accessible. And if you don't do that, then it's not going to be. So like it's always going to be there. So if you don't have that immediate reinforcement of yes, this works, you know, and so it's so easy to slip back. And then Cleo later says, the people we were always eventually catch up to the people we are. And then, so let's break that down before we finish that, because I have another bit of that too, but like, let's break that down. So if you're saying people are not always the same person that you think that they are or that they were in the past, but the people we were always eventually catch up to the people we are. So if we can truly change, then how does the person we were catch up to us? And if we can't truly change, then what is, you know, like, what's the point of trying? Like, if we can't truly change.
I love this. I absolutely, I feel like I know exactly what she's trying to say here. Like, yes, we're capable of change, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to pay for the sins of your past kind of thing. Like, you can be a changed person, but if you really fuck up, it's going to follow you and you might have to live with guilt and shame for a very, very long time. And I think we can even see it like a little bit of a different way too. Like I always tell my clients, we all have patterns. And the reason why we call it a pattern is because a pattern repeats. That same pattern is probably going to keep coming up for you. Even if you stop listening to it, that urge still might be there. So we could see it as like catching up to you in that way. There's like many layers here. I love this quote. And honestly, just having this discussion and like hearing all the different perspectives, I'm like, is this a 4-star? Thanks for reading.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you totally. I think that the essence of who we are, like on one hand, what you were saying was like more of like a consequence of past behavior. Of like, yes, you have to deal with those consequences no matter what. Like that's always going to catch up with you. But I also think that like we are unique and individual people and we can change our behavior, but there are certain parts of us that will always be distinct and that will always be different. And I don't necessarily think that those things are aligned with whether you're a good person or a bad person per se. I think those things can be shown in different ways, but that will always be us. Like that will always be the essence of who you are. But I also don't believe in evil or good. Like I think everyone is gray.
Yeah.
Okay, so then even later, Patience says rivers are like people. They change. They go where they have to. Sometimes they don't look like themselves, but they are still who they are, which is along the same kind of vein of what we're talking about. But do you guys think that Alice Feeney is sending a conflicting message with these different quotes within her characters? Because Edith is saying, Cleo is saying not everyone's the same as the person you met in the past. Yeah. But then we're also saying rivers are like people. We can change. We can go where we have to. We bend where the land takes us. And so at the core, they're still who they are. But do you think that's all cohesive? Or that's contradictory, contrary? Does that make sense?
Yeah. That like really made me think. I don't know. I feel like the core of who we are, like where I get my self-worth from, is not where I'm taken on my river journey. Like that piece of me stays consistent. My identity can't be touched by the outside stuff, but that doesn't mean that I can't shift and change along with the experiences that I have.
Yeah. I feel like I don't have anything really valuable to add. Like that was so good what you guys just said. So fully agree.
All right. Yeah. Well, I think it can be everything and it can be nothing. Like at the same time, I think both things can be true. I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think that, we are who we always were, but we also can change. So I think both of those things are true at the same time. What was the significance of the ladybug? I didn't give you guys this one, but I wanted to talk about it a little bit because Edith calls Patience ladybug. And then there's this whole thing with the rings where they had the 3 rings, and Cleo had one, Frankie had one, and Patience had one. And that's kind of like a theme throughout, is the ladybug. And if you remember, they talked about how ladybugs are lucky, but there was something also about their spots, like some represent good fortune and some represent bad or something like that. Do you all remember what that was?
I don't remember the meaning, but something just clicked in my brain. Like the way that I picked up on the relation between the characters was when they were talking about the freckles. Like, oh, they all have these same freckles. And I feel like the ladybug spots and the people freckles were a parallel.
That's good.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They also mentioned something about how ladybugs can give birth to already pregnant ladybugs.
Yeah.
And so I think the kind of generational thing was a theme here as well with the ladybugs.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. Let's get back to the comments here and catch up real quick. I had to change. I had to change. Been sober for 6 years with a lot of therapy. It was necessary for me to get help and put in a lot of work, but I've definitely changed. Good for you, Alice. That is awesome to hear.
Yeah.
Oh, sober 4 years next year. Wholeheartedly know what you mean. Oh, I'm so proud of y'all. That's awesome. Sending love. Let's see. I think this is how the new you can see / accept the old you. And the old you will always still be there and will finally accept the new you too. It's like uniting your two selves. Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, lots of support in here for both of y'all. That's awesome. Let's see. Thanks, guys. A lot of the book community has been especially encouraging, and I fucking love this community. Can I just tell you? I've never Hailey, I know you've been going through some shit lately, and I feel for you, girl. But for the most part, the book community is absolutely lovely.
Yeah.
I'll be popping bad in here popping back after I read. I just want to say hi. Oh, hi, Dawn. Doesn't all insect have a metamorphosis in their life cycle? Oh, there you go. That's another good point. That is another good point. Yes. Okay. Let's see. Anything else that y'all feel like we haven't touched on that you want to discuss about? I know it's just about 8:00, so we're probably going to wrap it up here in just a minute here. Anything else you feel like we didn't touch on that you want to bring up?
Not really for me. The one thing that maybe I would wish could have been reworked a little is some of the twists and reveals toward the end, to me, were a little congested. Like, it seemed like like how we were confused with that scene of who actually killed Joy. Like
Mhm.
it was just so much shoved into such a quick little section. And I kind of wish maybe we could have taken a little more time on unveiling those twists. But like you guys are really, really making me want to reread this book because I listened to it via audio and now I kind of want to reread it physically because I feel like there's a lot more depth to this that maybe went over my head a little bit. And I want to reread this book now.
I listened to the audio as well, but I also had the physics. So some of parts of it I read in tandem, but I did definitely kept finding myself stopping to like find my spot in the book and like, you know, highlight a line. Let me see if I can find. Oh yeah, like this. Just okay. Let's move on to why Alice Feeney is the Gandalf of thrillers. Because she's so freaking wise. Okay. She's talking about the art gallery in this one from Frankie's perspective and how it's been for years, generation after generation, been passed down. And then there's a quote that I highlighted that says, "Walking in so many shadows must make it hard to see your own path." And I love that. Like walking in like you're walking in all these shadows. You can't see your own shadow because it's being blurred by all of these people. And I feel like that so aptly describes that feeling of like feeling like you have to live up to something. You have this legacy that you have to protect. And that kind of like fight or flight of like, how am I good enough? You know, because of all these other shadows. Oh, I loved some of these lines, y'all. I was just like, whew. And that's why I think Gabby's going to like this one.
There was one quote that I did actually stop the audio and like write down because I loved it so much. She said, I don't know like what page or what chapter, but she said it's Patience talking. And she says how life in the big city tends to be a lot smaller than the dreams people have of it. She says people forget that nightmares are dreams too. And I just think that's so like that was so insightful to me because I did grow up in like a small town and always wanted to get out. Like I still live in the same area, but always wanted to get out, always dreamed of like going to New York or California or some like some big beautiful city. But that really puts it into perspective because like you think life's going to be so much better there. And you see like when she leaves her mom's boat and goes off on her own, like life is so hard for her. She doesn't have money and like life is a lot smaller than the dreams you actually have of it. So maybe don't take for granted like where you are and what you have.
Yeah, I like that. Let me see. Another one that I really liked was, is this Frankie again? Talking about being a good person. She says, all these years, she thought she was a good person who did a bad thing, but now she's starting to doubt herself. Do bad people know that's what they are? Maybe all villains are heroes of their own stories. And I think that's absolutely true. I think all villains are heroes of their own stories, especially the best villains.
Yeah.
And then lastly, whose POV is this? Cleo. Wait, is she doing here? Edith says, placing her hand over the heart. She wipes Cleo's tears. Holds her daughter. Okay, so this is Edith saying, we are all made from stars, the result of explosions millions of years ago. You, me, everyone we meet, we're all stardust and stories. Try to remember that. And I love that too. It's like we're all just stardust and stories. Like now we're getting to like existentialism and stuff like that, but still I thought it was profound. And I just thought there were so many of those moments in here where I was just like, yes, queen. Yes, this like just like get it, girl. She's so wise. I love it. So let's talk about, let me see here. Anything what would y'all recommend if somebody liked this or didn't like it? Anything like movies or other books that you would say are comparable to this?
That's a great question. I think you hit it on the head with the Ruth Ware comparison. I think it's very reminiscent of her. I'm trying to look at my shelves and see if there's any like morally gray vibes.
Yeah, I picked up The Death of Mrs. Westaway just because this is my favorite Ruth Ware.
Yes.
it definitely gave me Ruth Ware energy. Like the atmosphere, the writing, the mystery aspect, the kind of deep familial exploration that I could absolutely see from Ruth Ware.
The one that comes to mind for me, like if you like the exploration of complicated mother-daughter relationships, and this book is much darker, so it's not like a perfect comparison, but The Push by Ashley Audrain is like the one that immediately comes to mind. Another one of my personal favorites that also explores complex mother-daughter relationships is Catriona Ward's Sundial. That one is very similar in that it focuses on lots of different types of female bonds. So mother, daughter, also sisters and friends. Like I loved Sundial so much. I know it's like not a super popular one, but if that was something you loved about Good Bad Girl was the focus on like different familial bonds, I think either The Push or Sundial is pretty good recommendations.
Yeah, and I think that's like Lisa Jewell too. Lisa Jewell does those family relationships and she goes in. Like I feel like Alice Feeney in this one was like, oh, I'm gonna be kind of realistic here. Like these could be hyperboles of real people. Lisa Jewell's characters, they're insane.
Yeah.
I really want to read her newest one. I have not read it yet, but just the mere fact that it has a podcast element, I'm like already like, yes, I want to read it.
I give it 5 stars.
Did you? Oh my gosh. Okay, well that's good to know. I like The Death of Mrs. Westaway. Definitely listen to Daisy Darker View. Oh yeah. Yay. That one, Daisy Darker was like the most, like so many of those sage comments in that one too. It's funny because these two were the ones that she did that were more family drama that have all of these wise kind of sage sayings in them as opposed to like her ones that are more domestic. Yeah. So that's an interesting that it's now becoming like this trend.
Miss Alice might have gone to therapy over the pandemic and then
she might have. I didn't initially like The Push because I think I gave it 3 stars because I was expecting it to be darker than it was. I was expecting it to be a thriller when it was more family drama, but I do like the edge of that and I like what it's exploring within that. Yeah. They Never Learn. Yep, for sure. Yep. The Push is so good. Horror because honestly, real life nightmare. Well, for me, like the antithesis of, or like what I was looking for with The Push was The Perfect Child by Lucinda Berry.
Love that one.
Yeah, I was looking for that in The Push, and so when I read The Perfect Child, I was like, yes, this is it. I wanted the like outright creep from the kid, and I got that. I got that in The Perfect Child. The Push is more like, is it or isn't? It's like up to you to decide like what is actually happening and what's in their head. It's more psychological, I guess. They Never Learn. Okay. Couldn't take the gaslighting in this one.
In The Push, I think.
Oh yeah.
That was rough. Yeah.
You Were Always Mine by Christine Pride and Joe Piazza. Great book and great writing. Not a thriller, but another great book with female relations. Okay, well, I'll have to look that up. I've never heard that one. Okay, well, I think we're going to wrap it up. Ladies, what do you have anything coming up? Hailey, I know you've got a readathon coming up. Is that right?
Yes.
You want to tell us about anything that you want to promote on your channels? Y'all, also, I have both of these ladies' information in the description down below with the links to their YouTube, their Instagram. So go check them out. Go follow them. And let us know what you have going on, Hailey.
I am hosting Happy Hailey Ween. It's my yearly readathon. I'm not a readathon girl. Like if you're a person who doesn't like readathons, please do my readathon because it is so chill. We're literally just going to sprint every day. You don't have to follow the prompts. I don't give a fuck. We're just going to watch horror movies and read thrillers and have a good little time. So that is October 16th through the 22nd over on my channel, and my Patreon gets extra perks.
Awesome. What about you, Mikala? Do you have anything coming up? Any videos you want to talk about or promote or anything like that?
I am definitely putting a lot of effort into some video plans for October because this is my first year on BookTube and because I love horror so much. I have some very fun, spooky videos planned. So if anybody does, like if you guys love Halloween too, definitely head over to my channel and stay tuned because I'm very excited about some of the videos I have planned for October.
This is like our time of year in like the thriller and horror community. Like this is our moment, you know? So like we have to milk it up for everything that it's worth because like this is what it's all about. Okay, well, next month for the Midnight Society Book Club, we are going to be reading Rouge by Mona Awad. I'm really excited. I'm going to have Kayla from Books and Lala on here, as well as Stephanie from Books in the Freezer. And if y'all don't know who Stephanie is, she doesn't have a big YouTube presence, to my knowledge, but she has a podcast called Books in the Freezer, and it's so good. And she has all of these amazing authors guest on her channel, and they oftentimes will talk about a specific trope and give recommendations, and then we get to know the authors as well. She's so great, and I'm sure you all know who Kayla is for Books and Lala, and this is one of my most anticipated books of the entire year. I am dying to read this book. It is beauty horror, essentially. And it's like all of these, and it's kind of like fairy tale-esque. So we'll see. But I'm very excited for that. We have the live show will be on October 29th at 5 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. So join us next month for that. And we will... Yes, and I'll do an announcement video shortly with that as well as the November pick. But I guess I can tell you we're going to be reading Nestlings by Nat Cassidy in November. So yeah, that's going to be it for today. I think, what do y'all think? Is this approved for the Midnight Society? Do we approve it? I think so.
Approved.
I think it's safe to say. So yeah, thank you ladies again so much for joining me. I loved having both of you here. And again, go follow both of these ladies. They are awesome. And we will see y'all next time. Don't forget life is short. So read Riley. Bye y'all.